Watching all the world go by now, underneath the hazy sky now. Got my ticket for the long ride. Yeah, from my park bench perspective, got that wide-eyed view on life. My park bench perspective, helping me to win the fight.
How you doing, Mike Hammer?
I am wonderful, Carlos Figueroa. What's up with you?
Not much. Just happy to be back on the bench with you. It's been a few days.
It's been a few days, and yes, it's a good perspective here on the bench.
Is it? And how have you? What kind of day are you having?
Well, this morning I'm having a good day. Last night, I don't know if you'll guess where I was, and it's not unbelievable, but it was interesting. It turned out to be really cool. But
where were you?
Well, I was someplace where there's a lot of people, and a lot of lights, and a lot of flashing, and there's somebody in town that's very big.
You know what? I guess was Springsteen in town?
No. Other side of the playing field.
Now I'm trying to think, like going opposite. I don't know.
Opposite of a boy.
I don't know which women were in town that are big. I do not know. You're gonna have to just tell me.
She has a couple names that.
Let's just tell me.
Well, let's just say it's the initials LG.
Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga. I went to Lady Gaga last night.
Do you know that she was married to the dude that's on Chicago Fire?
She's now engaged to a guy from Minneapolis.
No, she's not.
Truth. She said it last night in her show.
Really?
So
Is it you? Are you dating Lady Gaga?
I got my gal.
Okay.
I got mine.
All right.
No.
He's taking Gaga.
So we go, and a gal brings me there. Like, she's excited. I'm like, well, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
And we get tickets last minute. And we were sitting close when she came out to do the middle of the arena,
mm-hmm.
Down the long corridor. Yeah, it was quite the theater.
Yeah. I would imagine. Were there a lot of wardrobe changes?
A lot of little monsters there.
Little monsters? That's what they call you guys, huh?
Yeah.
You're now a little monster.
Yeah, you don't know. I didn't. I would say a lot of the costumes, which for some other people probably weren't costume, they were just everyday garb.
Yeah.
Half the fun was watching the scenery.
Was there any, because, to me, she's probably top 10 Super Bowl halftimes because she did that whole rappel down from way up top for her Super Bowl thing, right? That was awesome.
She put on a hell of a show. I know there's a lot of new songs, so she's, I guess, supposedly one dropped yesterday, and then she was singing it. But I was entertained, even with my bad knee and all.
With your bad knee and all. So, are you still taking pharmaceuticals for your bad knee, or are you having to, rough it out?
I am a brave person, but I lean in towards painkillers.
You know what? Better living through chemistry, right?
Yes. Why put yourself through pain when you don't have to?
Exactly.
Because we do that enough mentally. We don't need to do it physically.
Yeah.
And all the over-abusers got rid of the good ones, so we're stuck with weak ones, but we're good.
All right.
How about you? How you been? What you been up to since the bench? Besides talking about new benches.
You know what? I've been having a
day. You
might even say it's been a fine day.
It's been a fine day.
I've had a BarryFineDay.
You had a BarryFin. So that sounds familiar to a podcast of a classmate of ours that we've listened to.
Absolutely. We're talking about the BarryFin podcast. Spaces. If you're looking for it on your podcast apps, our fellow classmate, class of 84, Ron Barry podcast. And I have to tell you, be careful listening to it because they'll get you to spend money. That Barmeister. He sold me on it. So it's a good podcast. We're adding them to our pod roll. If you go to our webpage, you'll see a list of podcasts we recommend. And so help out a fellow St. Louis Park graduate and give it a listen.
So this is our shout out. We do some shout outs, right?
Absolutely. We really are enjoying all of the comments and things that we're receiving from people. We really want to build a community because we around a shared love of our hometown, St. Louis Park, Minnesota.
And yeah, that's where it started, and we will obviously touch on other things that stems from our venture out of there, but the history of being from there and how it played into what we're doing.
Today we're going to talk about some of our favorite places in St. Louis Park. Some of the places as our world expanded as little kids that we ventured out from our little corner of St. Louis Park, and areas that were special to us and give us good memories.
Good memory. I know, like for us, obviously, with the chit-chatting about baseball, the Little League field.
Yep.
And then
so when we say the Little League field, we got to remember Park National Little League field. We've been way too North St. Louis Park centric. We've heard from folks. We will talk about there were multiple Little League fields in St. Louis Park. So yes, but the one that was closest to us was Park National, and across the street
was the Babe Ruth field,
Carlson Field,
right by the water tower.
Yeah.
That, well, it's again devious. Yeah. People tried to climb up there.
Yeah. Were you one of those people? Did you ever try to climb the water tower?
No, because by the time we kind of got there, to get to the first rail of the stairs going up was quite high.
Yeah.
And you'd had to bring a big ladder, and that seemed like a lot of work.
Okay.
We could climb the other one a little bit easier.
Okay.
Didn't need to climb that one.
Right. So I'm going to stick to our area of town.
Is that probably why we haven't talked about that? Because as this podcast is growing, it's kind of like us growing up, so we haven't got to the rest of St. Louis Park as much.
We're expanding out, but I am gonna my next one I want to raise is in our neighborhood. I was there a lot. I ran from the police a lot there. It was the train trestle over off of Cedar Lake Road, where we would have keg parties back in the 80s.
Yes.
And if police lights were visible, you would take the tap off the keg, rode the keg into the woods and run, and then come back a half hour later, find the keg, tap it, and resume the party.
And hopefully you held onto your cup.
Well, exactly. That was the key, because that red Solo cup was very meaningful to us at that era.
Did they even make those cups red back then? Because all I know, they were that plasticky, almost clear through looking.
I want to say they were red, but maybe not.
No,
that came later.
Well, you had to go to the more affluent parts of town.
Okay, you're right. Now I'm thinking there were a lot. They were clear, right? They were the clear, and they were the less good plastic.
Cloudy clear looking. Yes, less good. Now they could crack easy. So
you're right. Now you're right. That's because we would just get them at like the liquor store, and those were the old cheapo ones that we would get.
You would get them with the keg because you had to have them, and back then, every penny counted, so you were going cheap.
You weren't going high end, right? Now, there were no napkins at the keg parties.
How much was a keg glass in your memory?
$2.
Did it ever change?
Never, not in my memory.
I don't know if now it's probably like $15 a glass, but it just seemed like it was $1, no, $2. I do remember some people like flirted with $3, and you're like going, people got $2 for a keg glass.
Yeah.
And then whatever, if they wanted to go eat something afterwards. So,
and if you were throwing a party, you wanted to have plenty of women at the party, not just because it encourages men to show up, but the belief was that women will not drink their $2 worth of beer. That if you just have guys, you'll run out of beer a lot sooner. I don't know how accurate that is. I've met a lot of beer drinkers that can put me to shame. I would not want to challenge Pam to a beer drinking contest because she would kick my ass, as she's called me a lightweight more than once in my life. But that was the theory. You wanted to have that ratio for your party.
Well, yeah, they don't usually drink as much. I mean, we'll just go with their just the physicality.
Yeah.
Of it. But I would say this: when you're done, and I picked up many keg glasses from my parties.
Yeah.
You see a lot more lipstick on the ones that are half full, laying around, than the ones that are half full, not laying. Well, so they don't drink them all or finish them all, and I get it.
Well, we learned at the altar of Kenny Kegger, and that was sacrilege to waste beer. So that was not something that I would do because that was sacrilegious.
Yeah, that's alcohol abuse. And I remember too, there's certain people that love to be the keg master.
Yeah.
Hold the tab.
Yes.
And then look at people like, what are you doing here?
Mm-hmm.
And if they sometimes they did this pettiness, they'd make you wait and give it to anybody else, and you're like going,
And I don't want to pick on him, and I should not have used his nickname, but Kenny was one of those guys, because you always had those guys that would be by the keg.
Yep, by the keg.
They would be by the keg, because that's why I'm here, and that's where I'm going to be. But let's expand out from and talk about...
Real quick, funny, a lot of those kegs were in tinier... In my house, a lot of times it was in the laundry room.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to get in the laundry room was a skinny hallway,
yeah.
and then you had to stick your hand over
Yep.
with your cup, kind of like trying to get your microphone in for an interview or something,
Yep.
and then hope it got filled, at least half or 2/3, and then go back and then stand there and put it back in.
How many basements in St. Louis Park do you think you were in at some kind of a party?
Oh,
I'm thinking maybe a couple hundreds in St. Louis Park. I'd say a few dozen, but it was the same. I didn't think there were hundreds that were throwing parties. Wow.
Well,
You're more social than I am.
4 or 5 years, and
Yeah.
a lot of it was, there's a number at my house.
No, more than once. I've had the march everybody out of the basement scene when the police show up, and I was fortunate that nobody ever took names or tickets or anything like that. It was just like, party's over, kids. Gotta go.
It was interesting because eventually my neighbor would always call, and the police would come. One time there's a little story about, we'll bring it up another time. R.I.P. could bring her up. She wouldn't be embarrassed, but my mother at the party would, but whatever. So another one was they came, and it was like the third call, and they're like, okay, here's the deal. Mm-hmm. And they come up to me, and they're negotiating with me, like, we got an offer for you, and I'm 16, 17 at the time going, let's hear your best offer. I have zero leverage. I don't know why they're being nice. It's kind of like they're like, we don't really want to deal with this, so we're going to make it as easy as possible. We'll give you 15 minutes, get everybody who wants to stay at the party in the basement. Everybody else will kick out. And I'm like going,
it's not a bad deal.
Not a bad deal. It's kind of getting late. It's hard to tell everybody to go home.
Yeah, so, and also then that forces you to be like, okay, who are your top friends?
Yep.
Who made the cut?
Who made the cut?
And who was passed out so you couldn't get them to leave?
Yeah, exactly. Got them all in the house. And the cops looked at me. I'm like, proceed. And they went. And the only thing they said, okay, now, we don't want any more people in the front yard, backyard, wherever, up and down. Here's the deal. And they would just know that they're going. I don't know. They don't know they're going to their car, they're driving, but we're going to come by in the morning. If we see a goddamn keg glass anywhere up and down the block, you're in trouble. You get up early, you clean this neighborhood, and we're good. And I'm like,
did you?
Yeah, I did.
No. Wait a minute. Let's back up. You got up early?
I cleaned it that night.
Okay. All right, that makes more sense, my friend. Yeah. That makes more sense. Got any spots?
So the Trestle was fun with the kegs. And over by Meadowbrook, there was the spot.
Yeah, there was another place we'd have kegs. It was over by Meadowbrook. We would climb that fence, I think, or could we sneak in?
It was a time you had to climb it, and then you had to walk along the golf course. It depends on which area you came from, which side you came, where you parked. Because it was always like, where you going to park? You don't want the cops to know too much that you're there.
Yeah.
Kind of like when you'd go to Bareass Beach or whatever, at Cedar Lake.
Yep.
It was a neighborhood that too many people went at once. Or like, there's something going on down there.
Yeah.
Which,
as I recall going there, there was a long walk through woods.
Yes.
Because you did not want to do the direct access, right?
Yes. So you had to walk through it, and then you'd come up, and then all of a sudden you wouldn't see it because when the cops did come to the beach, they didn't have their lights show. They were coming in incognito.
Yes.
And all of a sudden they get to the beach and they put on their flashlights, they turn them on and look, and if you were partaking in what Bareass Beach meant, you're like, all right, perverts, turn those off. We'll get out of here. Let's go.
When we were seniors, I want to say, we went to a house party somewhere. It was not in St. Louis Park, but it was near the lakes. And I remember this for two reasons. One, my cousin Manny was there, so this was for older people. And number two, the police came, and we ran. And we ran, and we ran, and we were like in a park. And there was like, we were like lower behind some trees, and then, see the cops' floodlights. And I'm like going, why did we run?
Why did we?
I don't understand why we're running. I mean, there's 150 people. I mean, why are they going to grab us? I mean, I don't, and so but that's what we did.
We felt that we were the droids they were looking for?
Apparently, I don't, once again, I'll fully admit that a lot of times I'm a dumbass adult, but I was really a dumbass teenager. I did shit where, like, I have no idea why I did what I did.
Well, the frontal lobe, they say in boys.
Yes.
And they say we grow up with the fight or flight.
Yep.
Twitch, and that's inbred from day one.
Yep.
You don't know at a certain age.
You're right. You're right. Your lower brainstem takes over. What are they had. I'm going to go Cliff Clavin on you.
Yeah.
The old saying was that your prefrontal cortex isn't developed until 25.
Yeah.
The reality is that study,
yeah.
they only had they looked at fMRI, like pictures of brains.
Yeah.
But they stopped the study at 19, and they said, okay, based on how much it goes down each year, we think it'll be done by 25. In modern times, the studies actually show that it keeps growing until about 30, 31, 32. So
you got a lot of people our age doing dumb shit.
You know what?
I still once in a while partake in dumb shit.
Yes, I will. It's you get to be a certain age, and you start to wonder, okay, is that me having a bad day? Is that my mental decline? Or is that an after effect of things I might have imbibed the day before?
We're not thinking it through. Kind of like it's different than going in with an open mind, but it's kind of saying, what's the downside?
Yeah.
Kind of like last night going in with an open mind. I went there and I was pleasantly floored with the performance there. Yeah. And it was fun. So we stop at an older age doing dumb things without going, let's play this out for a second.
Yeah. Well, what's the old saying is that do people stop playing because they grow old, or do they grow old because they stop playing? And this really reminds me of what you had been talking about with respect to one of our favorite shows, Ted Lasso.
Wow.
And the old Get Curious. You went in to Lady Gaga with the attitude of, I'm going to be curious what this, rather than, what are these stupid kids into? What did they drag me to? Yeah. And that attitude change resulted in you having fun.
I was dancing.
You know?
I stood up most of the show, sorny and all, and it was great.
But I bet you your knee is hurting bad today.
I was a little tired. It doesn't really get hurt. It just gets tired out. And that'll blow away soon because I don't want to talk about old people stuff. But no, the curiosity of I do that with work sometimes. I don't know necessarily if I could do it, but let's give it a whirl and see what happens. Yeah. Worst case scenario is we'll find someone else to do it. But
you can
growing old is that, like, don't let the old in your house.
Yeah.
Don't. I used to say this when I was younger. Quit telling me you're tired. Because when you keep saying you're tired, guess what you are? Yeah. You're freaking tired. Just say, I'm a little tuckered. Say something else. But don't let yourself, because you let yourself off the hook and not do fun things. And like last night, I could have easily said, got a bad knee, I got this and that, I'm not going. And so I'm like, let's go down and see. She's like, tickets were outrageously priced, but I'm like, let's at least get in the area. And then decide what.
I find it fascinating that you have those conversations with yourself, because I consider you and me to be on the opposite spectrums of social. And so I have that conversation in my brain for everything. Oh, you know what? I really need some dishwashing detergent. I should stop at the store. You know what? I could just order all my groceries online and not have to deal with any other human beings. Let's do it that way.
Do you kind of equate this to you have to talk yourself into things more?
Yes.
Where I have to talk myself out of doing dumb stuff still at times going,
well, but you're labeling it as dumb, even though you're trying something different, right?
Not dumb. Okay, yeah, it's not as it's sort of like, you want to go do this? Yep. Kind of like Forrest Gump.
Is that your default? Your default is yes?
Yep. Kind of like the Forrest Gump when he just runs out his front steps and just starts running. Sometimes I kind of like,
well, and the
I'm
thing,
Forrest Gump in here. I'm just running.
In a lot of ways, I was like a 40-year-old man when we were kids, because just like I talked about that new amphitheater in Shakopee, which looks cool and they got a great act, but I'm like, I need to know about the traffic situation. What's the parking situation like? Like, boy, how late do the shows start? Like, how late am I going to have to be driving back? And it's like going, I would make those same kind of calculations at 10 and 12, which you paid me what I thought was a backhanded compliment once, but truly, in retrospect, it's a good compliment, where you said, Carlos, if I ever win the lottery, I'm going to hire you. I'm going to hire you to be around and make sure I don't do really stupid stuff. And I'm like,
myself, yeah.
I'm like, okay, you're kind of calling me a killjoy, but no, I'm really going to be a kill death, not killjoy. But, you know, as we were talking, a lot of the stories about where things were maybe a little bit more out of hand oftentimes involved you and other friends and not me.
Oh, let's just say from the history of kind of what you would partake in and wouldn't. There was a band of, I don't want to say followers because we all kind of followed the same thing, but there was a certain band. You at a younger age became more of a, this could go sideways in a hurry. Yeah. So, gentlemen, tell me the stories later.
Yeah. Well,
we're not going to go through.
Here's the thing is, like, I was built that way, and then I go to law school, and law school teaches you basically to look for landmines everywhere. So it's kind of like now I'm like, when I got that thought process, my initial thought process, so I actually need to get myself to get curious more, to try the things.
And I'll say this, not to pick on that, because you're an only child, and that's wonderful, but sometimes when you have siblings, you kind of go that my parents have a few of us to deal with. They can't focus on punishing me fully for this.
Mm-hmm.
They'll just go like, and maybe one of my siblings will do something stupider. Places we didn't get very far.
So I'll throw out there Knollwood Mall, which really changed for us. I mean, it was, you know, we were little kids. I mean, there was Park Knoll School was there, and it was all an outdoor kind of strip mall thing. Yeah. And then Montgomery, you know, they tore down that school. Montgomery Wards came in.
Remember that little circle with 3 funny farm animals, the carousel? You put a quarter in.
Yeah, it would be right outside the grocery store.
And at halftime didn't work.
Yeah.
But as a kid, you're like, Mom, I want to get it. And then you get at it, and like a minute later, you're like, this is dumb.
Yeah.
But I'll be back next time we're here.
So I don't remember that at Knollwood. I remember that at Shopper City that we talked about.
No, that Knollwood too. It was I don't know if it was by the grocery store, or the hardware store, or whatever. I just remember that because before, you know, it was an open mall, and it was always seemed like, I don't know, it was.
I'm gonna incorporate a piece of Golden Valley kind of for my next one. That was a good spot.
What was the one I was just gonna think about? How would you know? Because I was just thinking about back in our neighborhood. I don't know if you talked about once, but when Burger King came.
Yes.
That was a big deal. To cross highway.
We were playing Frogger. Cross Highway 12. There was no pedestrian bridge. There was nothing.
Because we were like 12.
Yeah.
11, 12. And that's something I remember going. We snuck over to Burger King. Yeah. Nobody knows. We ate and we snuck back.
But that's Golden Valley. I was going to throw out Golden Valley, a place that I'd hung out a lot with your little brother Marty, which is
Brookview Golf Course.
Brookview Golf Course. I, hit a few buckets of balls there in my time and played the 9 there numerous times. And so that was kind of my very first exposure to golf was the par 3 there at Brookview.
Brookview was a big one. Meadowbrook was a big one. Theaterworth. Seemed like Brookview was always a little bit busier.
Yeah.
I think those car dealerships, the salesman would always just.
I didn't like Theaterworth because it just was like boring.
Long and boring.
Yeah.
And it just sounds Theodore.
Yeah.
Theodore.
Now, what was the one over in Edina that we played at? Is that Braemar?
Braemar was a par 3.
Par 3, it was fun.
There was one way down, a par 3, down Highway 7 and 1. It was on 7 and 101. There was a driving lane.
Was there a big 9? There was a big 9 we played once. I can't remember where it was.
Could have been. Yeah, Marty liked his golf. He
did.
He was very good. I wish I could have pushed him harder just after his accident to kind of drive around the country and play in all these little mini tours and see what happens.
See what happens. See how good he could be. He never gave himself the chance.
Other places you like there?
You know, one of my places, and this is in my neighborhood, and I don't. Maybe I've mentioned it, maybe I haven't, but Coast to Coast hardware store right on Cedar Lake Road in Louisiana.
By Schneider's.
Right next to Schneider's Drugs. But I remember as a kid going in there with my dad, and my dad would say, here's the problem, and I can't remember the name of the gentleman behind the counter, but he'd say, okay, Carlos, and he'd walk you back, and he'd point to the exact thing you needed, and he'd tell you how to fix everything. I mean, this was before YouTube, before, Home Depot. We had the guy behind the counter at Coast to Coast, and he could pretty much get us to be able to fix just about anything.
And as I remember it, the aisles were thin because they wanted to get as many aisles, and the shelves were high, and the floor was wooden. Yeah. And there would be, and he'd find the box, third row.
But they did everything. They did paint. They did small engine lawnmower. They did screens. They were like the every person. And actually, not to sound like old guy, the world was better, but I feel sad that progress has killed little places like that. And yes, you know what? I'm sure that we're paying a lot less at Home Depot or Menards for the things. But we're losing out on that expertise. Now people can say, yes, but now you've got a million YouTube channels. But there's just still something about having a local guy who knows you.
And yes and no on the prices, because you could go there and buy, if you only needed 2 screws, you could buy 2 screws.
That's true.
That's true.
That's true.
But now you go into the big box store, you got to buy a box of them. Yeah. And then you sit there like, oh, what the hell am I going to do with these screws? But yeah, Coast to Coast was fun.
Miracle Mile
we got when we got wheels, because that was a little bit too far to go to. I remember.
I don't think I ever biked that way.
No. Remember when we walked back from St. Louis, from Cedar Manor?
Oh,
that
yeah.
was a long walk. Oh, yeah. 2 miles.
Even biking there.
Yeah. That was a long walk. Okay, well, one place we didn't bring it up one thing, but back to the locations was the movie theater, Cooper Movie Theater, and the what was the small one called?
Shillard Park.
Oh no, when they put the second theater on there, it was.
I can't remember the Cameo. Cooper Cameo.
I think it was the Cameo.
Cooper Cameo.
So and then there was Honeywell.
Yes, Honeywell.
Everybody learned.
I learned how to drive a stick in the Honeywell parking lot, as I think many people did.
People went through and they drove and parked and learned. Then right down the Cedar Lake Road or Hampshire, where Prestige Lincoln Mercury was.
Yes.
Right behind them, there's a little swamp in that little field area.
Yes.
Where we'd ride dirt bikes and go-karts.
And then a little further down was that field where we would play football with Nelson and Kenny.
Yes.
So
Billy Boswell always had go-karts. And he had that one like a little Corvette.
Yep.
And God bless him and his dad. But within an hour of being there with 3 or 4 friends.
Yeah, it was trashed.
Something's breaking because somebody went off the rails or broke this or broke that, and we're pushing them back, but that was fun.
All right, so we will definitely pick up more places in St. Louis Park.
We didn't get very far, did we?
We did. You know what? We
got to Knollwood, though. Knollwood's pretty good.
So let me throw this out there to folks that listen. We really want to start having guests on or friends of St. Louis Park on. Not going to try to use the word guest, but friends of the park bench. We'd love to have you on to talk about what part of St. Louis Park you grew up in. When did you go to the high school? Who were your favorite teachers? So leave us a comment. We're going to be reaching out to several of you, and hopefully we can expand out and learn more about St. Louis Park kind of before us, after us, and in all around the city.
Did we talk about how it became named St. Louis Park? And that's a question for people to kind of chime in on. Did you know there was a downtown St. Louis Park?
I did not.
I did not either. I found this out. And
do we want to leave that as a tease for our next episode?
It's not where you'd think it was. But then you think of it and you go, that makes sense.
All right. Well, I look forward to hearing that. We'll start out our next episode with the story of St. Louis Park.
And the battle line of France Avenue.
Whoa. Wow. Wow, now I almost want to see the movie.
Oh.
So, Mike Hammer, what do you have going on in your world?
Just to say, we're trying to save everybody's souls one step at a time. Foot Pain Authority, get your feet feeling great, footpainauthority.com, and you tell me what you got.
So, my goal is by next Friday to have completed my first novel, The Ghost of Lake Ossis, and have it turned in for publishing. So my hope is that I'm able to give folks a sales link early in May. But that is what I'm working on. I'm working on kind of the nuts and bolts of trying to make the book be as good as it can. But I will let folks know when that's available.
Yeah, because like I said, I've had more people bring up to me about your baseball article.
Yeah,
the antitrust. And I reread it a couple times because I spend my time wisely.
Yeah. It's actually fascinating, and if people want to read more about that, I've got a couple things going on there. I've got the Ballpark Barrister, which is a regular newsletter I do on my LinkedIn as well as on my Substack. It's a section of my Substack, Systems Under Pressure, right? Where I just talk a lot about baseball and how the law impacts the game. So
Plunky Twins are above 500. All right.
Awesome. Mike Hammer, I know you and I are going to keep talking the rest of the day, but I think the listeners have other things to do. So I think it's time to get up off the bench.
And Carlos and Hammer,
out.
Watching the world spinning slow. Another day, strange afterglow. From the comfort of this wooden seat, a symphony for tired feet. Park bench perspective.